instructors here at Go Physio. Today I'm going to explain the anatomy of the reformer and all the different working parts that make it up. So I'm going to start with this end of the reformer, which is our footbar. So this works on a ratchet mechanism like so. You can have it at different heights, so depending on the exercise you're doing, you may have it at a high height like this, or it goes at a medium height or a low height like so. So you just use this mechanism to change the height, and you can also have it completely flat as well. We've also got this foot strap here, which is an extra addition, so it doesn't come with the reformer straight away. You have to order that one separately, but if you have this, it's a nice addition so that you can link your feet under here to support you on some of your core-based exercises. It's got a little bit of a fluffy strap just to make it a little bit more comfortable. We're moving on to this part here. This is the foot plate, so this bit's nice and solid. It doesn't move when the carriage moves. It is nice and stationary, so when you're getting on and off of the reformer for standing based exercises, this is the bit that I would suggest that you stand on. Again, like the foot strap, it is a separate part that comes not with the reformer straight away. It's something, again, you would have to order separately. So underneath this foot plate is our springs, and this is the main working part of the reformer, and this is the bits that will determine the exercise, whether it's medium, easy or hard. Just depends on what springs that we pop on. So on here we have our yellow spring, which is our light spring, so it's very easy. And then we have a medium spring, which is a little bit more challenging. And they go in quarter spring levels. So our yellow would be classed as a quarter spring, our blue is a half. Our red is a little bit harder, and that is a 1, and we have 2 of those. So they're both 1 on the levels. And then we have one green spring here, which is a 1.5. So that's really heavy. So they're the different springs. You can have them on in different combinations. They are just a hook and eye, so they just hook on and hook off. So once they are on the hook and eye, that means that the spring will be working. When you take it off the hook and eye, that spring is no longer in use. So it's just depending on which exercise you are doing, you'll want to make sure you've got the right springs on for the aim of the exercise. We also then have the mechanism that allows you to move the reformer carriage out. So depending on your size, if you were really short like me, you would want the carriage in, and that will mean that you have to bring it in through the ratchet mechanism on the inside. And then if you're really tall, then you would pull it out and you would come right out to the end, which allows the carriage to be further out for its starting point. Our mid-range for most people is the second rung in. So if you have the same reformer as us, I would suggest starting on that second rung and then seeing how comfortable things feel. So the other part of the reformer, which is also a major working part, is the carriage itself. So if I take off a couple of springs here, you'll see how it moves. Pop the foot plate back in there. But I've only popped one yellow spring on, so the carriage is going to move very, very easily. So the carriage moves out and in through that spring mechanism, just like so. So whenever you're getting on and off the reformer, know what spring you're on, and also when you're getting onto it, realise that it's going to move. The only time it doesn't particularly move is when we've got all of the springs on. But as soon as you start to take springs off, this is going to move. So for safety reasons, double check your springs before getting onto the moving part of the carriage. Coming up to this end of the reformer, we've got our shoulder pads here. So they're called shoulder pads, but they're not always used just for our shoulders, can be used for different things. However, when we're setting up for our laying down exercises, we'll have our shoulders near to the shoulder pads, but you want about 1 inch in between the shoulder pads and your shoulder. So they're there to stop you going off that end of the reformer, but they're not there to really press into the shoulder when we're setting up for our exercises. You always want to make sure there's a little bit of a gap. Moving up to here, we've got our head block. So again, depending on exercise, you might want a little bit of a head block, and that works again on a bit of a ratchet mechanism. And you can have it at 3 different heights. You can have it really high, you can have it medium like so, or you can have it completely down. So it's just a little wooden block that allows you to create different heights. And so yeah, there's some exercises where you would want it flat just to protect the neck. There's other exercises where you want it up a little bit just so that it gives you some support into a better head position. We've then got our straps here, so they have little pegs here that they are hooked onto. We always pop the big loop on the pegs when we're storing it at rest, but in terms of the strap loops, the big one and also the small one are used. The small one is mainly for our hands, so holding onto it with our hands, and then the big loop is mainly for our feet, so you would loop your feet in there, depending again on what exercise you're doing. And then they store nicely like that. The straps come up towards our uprights, which this is called the upright. At the end of the reformer, they go through this little wheel here, coming underneath the reformer where they attach in. Underneath the reformer, there's a little latch that you can change the length of these straps depending on your height, depending on the exercise, those different types of things. On either strap, there is a little latch that you would unclip and then pull the strap in or out, depending on what length you want. So that's, yeah, underneath the reformer. So have a look at that if you need to change those straps. We then have our runners here. So these are our runners that have the wheels of the reformer carriage that allow it to run up and down when it's moving. These can be used as kind of handles and things for certain different exercises. Sometimes they can often get a little bit of dirt in them, in the little crevices that they've got along here, which makes the carriage a little bit sticky when it runs. So have a little look in there and just clean them out every now and then, just so that your carriage is always running nice and smoothly. Coming up to this end, like I said before, we've got the uprights, and they can be changed as well by these little adjustable knobs here. They have 4 different levels, and again, it's depending on your size, height of the reformer, and depending on what type of exercise you're doing with it. So have a little play around with that. We also then have our foot pegs here. So these also are another extra that you would need to get with the reformer. So it will come with it laid flat on the ground. And then you can purchase these extra pegs which allow it to be lifted up a little bit. So if you struggle to kind of get on and off of the floor, I would suggest these would be quite a good purchase, because it just lifts the reformer bed up quite a bit. And then we have some other bits of equipment that you can pop onto the reformer. So we've got our box, which again is another purchase that you would need. It doesn't come with the reformer itself. So we have a box position called a long box. So when it's on in this position here, this is called our long box. And then when it's in this position like so, widthways, this is called our short box. So in terms of different series of movements, we might do some on the long box, some on the short box. So that's just their names when you're thinking about doing certain movements and how to pop the box onto the reformer. So we also then have a jump board, which I'll grab just now. So this here is just a flat jump board. You can get different types of jump boards. You can get trampettes, springy ones, but they all fit into the reformer in the same way. So there's 2 little squares at the end of our foot plate here, and this is where the reformer jump board will fit in. It slots in really nicely into those squares like so. make sure it's fully down, that it's not half up. Then it also gets screwed in nice and tightly with these little screws here, just to secure it so that it's not going to come out when you start doing any jumping or any movement on it. So that is all of the different parts of the reformer and how you can kind of set it up at home. But if you have any other questions, feel free to get in contact with us via email or ask at reception. They'll be able to direct you to one of our reformer Pilates instructors. Thanks guys!